Want to know all the Culture and Leadership Connections podcast secrets? Well, here's your chance to get to know everything from the inside out. From March 27th to April 12th, I will be giving you the inside scoop to everything podcast with our podcast details. Week 1 is all about the Culture and Leadership Connections team members. They will pull back the curtain on how they do what they do and show you the inner workings of each part. You can find out how Mike Kurlander does the audio editing and production, how Malvika Kathpal creates the show notes, and special timestamp quotes we used for our social media promotions. Kirsten Hoyer will demo how she created our podcast webpage and what went into creating the logo design. Berna Guadiz will show you all the website, email alert, and scheduling aspects of setting up the podcast. And finally, I will explain how I find podcast guests and give you the skinny on my unique interview process secret sauce. Week 2 will focus on the guests and the special bonus content you can expect to receive as a Patreon subscriber. I will take you to some of the places and family histories of our guests and give you some insights into their favorite things. There will be special guest appearances, a showcase of the fabulous membership perks, and I'll tell you about the prizes you can win by becoming a Patreon subscriber during our 2-week launch. It's going to be a lot of fun with an event every day, and you get to feel good about helping the Culture and Leadership Connections podcast team reach our goal of 100 subscribers. You can get the event list and join in the excitement by sending a Facebook message to me, Marie Gervais, or by emailing me at marie@shiftworkplace.com. Make sure you put podcast in the subject line if you're emailing, and if you're sending a Facebook message, my name is spelled Mariegervais, Marie Gervais. I'm looking forward to hearing from you and getting you onto the list to let you know all the inside scoop of what's going on behind the scenes for the Culture and Leadership Connections podcast episodes. Hello, Culture and Leadership Connections listeners. I'm very happy to bring to you today my guest, Denise Shamlian, who is an entrepreneur and a health education advocate who comes to the industry through the beauty and health background. Denise Shamlian is the owner of Get Up, Get Out, Get Well Health Coaching and has successfully worked with clients around the world, helping them to achieve their health and happiness goals. Her corporate experience in sales, marketing, and education spans many well-known Fortune 500 companies dedicated to health and beauty. Always having a dedication to health and wellness, Denise achieved her health coaching certificate from integrative nutrition to foster new ideas and grow a health and wellness business. She is a licensed esthetician in 3 states. She features facials as part of her clients' unique programs. Denise advocates for health and wellness businesses and clients with a specific focus on marginalized communities. Welcome, Denise.
Thank you so much, Marie, for having me.
I'm so excited to be interviewing you today because I have never met anyone who worked for famous makeup companies. I think it's kind of like for men who meet someone who actually worked for the company that they bought their first car from or something like that. That's kind of how I feel talking to you.
I can understand, yes.
So just maybe fill the listeners in a little bit more about who you are personally.
Sure. Thank you. I am a woman who's always been involved with helping people, and especially a focus with women, because all of the companies that I worked for happened to be, in the beginning of my career, started by very influential women. If I can say some names, Liz Claiborne, Estee Lauder, these were the names in the United States that pretty much brought about women's empowerment and women's ability to do self-care when many, many years ago, self-care for women was something that they would rely upon men to bring to them to use. Estee Lauder started by putting perfumed oils, and a woman was able to express herself. So those things were very important to me. And after graduating St. John's, I went straight into the fashion beauty world, and it's very exciting. It's glamorous. I've been involved behind many shows and TV shows and radio and on fashion walks, and been able to kind of be immersed in that amazing business. And I was mentored by such fabulous women and men that the corporate environment, it helped me kind of go to my next level career, which I know you speak about a lot, is that we are on several careers. I took that corporate knowledge, the training, all of the things that I had been very blessed to learn, and take that into my own business. And right now, the focus is completely 100% on that, because considering the times that we're in, our health crisis is something that is very close and very important to me, because health and wellness is something that sets you up for success in so many places in your life. So my goal is now to help create new programs, new thoughts, lead with new wisdom about where we're going in the health and wellness sector. And coming from the CPG arena, the consumer product goods arena, I've been hearing that the health and wellness sector has been steadily growing since 2007. My thoughts are, it's here. And how do we now capitalize upon that for our social needs so that we have a greater quality of life?
That's great. And when we were speaking a little bit earlier, we were talking about self-care and women. And I'm thinking when women are putting things on their faces that gets absorbed into their bodies, that's got to be a serious concern. You know, you want to know what's in that, what's going into your body through your skin. And then what are you eating and how is your lifestyle supporting you being a healthy, whole person? Because your skin and your sense of who you are is reflected so much by whether you feel healthy or not.
Correct. And I've said many a time and over the years during trainings that people can put creams and lotions, but if the underlying structure is not there in the health and wellness arena, the results may not be as well. You know, you'll get results, but if you do an overall lifestyle adjustment, you mentioned in the beginning about what is being put on your face. Yes, that's extremely important to think about. So there is a cost for beauty, as we say all the time. And, you know, it's just a matter of how willing the client is and what their goal is for their lifestyle. Anything is possible. Anything is achievable.
And women have been doing things to be beautiful, knowing that it would be harmful to them, or without knowing that it would be harmful to them. I'm thinking of a documentary show that I watched where people didn't know that radioactivity was going to be an issue, and they made eyeliner and lipstick with radioactive products that ate through women's faces, and hundreds of thousands of women that experienced that. And the people who were promoting it knew it was going to damage women, and they sold it anyway.
Yeah, this is a very interesting concept, because with anything, any kind of consumer product good, there's an ethical factor in everything that we do. And so that is a sad story to hear. And what I stress when I speak to women all around the world is be aware, do your research, and find someone like a beauty advisor or a facialist, esthetician, whomever, to kind of guide you if you have questions. Nowadays, you can pretty much Google anything, anywhere, and get all kinds of information. But what I think the companies that I worked with tried to instill in everyone was that you have a level of expertise in products in a company where you're trained that no one else has. And so it really benefits you to have ethical trainings and ethical information and ethical care in everything that you do.
I so agree. Without ethics, we really can't be proud of anything we've done in our lives.
Exactly. And we're coming into crazy times as far as ethics and concerns and what do we believe. And so, like, you know, that's the reasons why to kind of bring attention to things so that people do their own research. Don't just blindly follow anyone has always been my thoughts.
Independent investigation.
Correct.
Yeah, do it. Look for the truth. Seek the truth. Yeah.
Yes.
And actually look for it in multiple places so that you can distinguish from what's truth and what isn't.
Correct. It should be able to be backed up, and there should be research. You know, we have to believe the testing that our own companies do where something isn't federally mandated or FDA regulated. So, you know, that's something where a lot of people have talked about that becoming, you know, something more closely controlled. And, you know, given the situation around our world and what's going on, that kind of maybe sometimes falls low on the priority list to follow up on. You know what I mean? It's like bring it up to the woman to kind of do her own research. And you're absolutely right. It goes back into Egyptian times where coal and objects were being applied to women to adorn oneself. And I think that's something in our human nature that women, and throughout this whole pandemic, beauty products endure, because even though we're not, let's say, wearing lipstick because of mask wearing, our eyes may have been, a focus, and we might see a jump up in mascara during this time. Everything is related. And when you study the kind of the world, Leonard Lauder would always say that women always buy lipstick. So, I'm hoping that maybe the lipstick's now turned into the mascara, of our plate.
Mm-hmm. There's so much we could talk about on this. I mean, I have so many things to ask you about. But let's go with the question about your childhood. So I'm sure you've had some incidents in your childhood that you feel were formative and made you into the person you are today. Can you share some of those with me?
Yes. I definitely feel that, our life is conditioning in so many ways. And I was born into a family that was very, very direct, very straightforward, very open in communication. And so that formed my free-spirited voice, I think, to be able to be free early in life. And things that I can remember about saying and doing were like not the average things that a 5 or a 6-year-old child would say. And so I was blessed with the gift of gab, I think they call it. And I basically found my voice because my surroundings allowed me to.
Mm-hmm. Can you think of a specific incident, something that happened to you or something you had to respond to that stands out as a memory for you?
Yeah, there were times when I was an advocate, and I was an advocate for a member of my family. And, specifically wanting to have that person's voice be heard, and they could not say their voice. I'm a big sister, and it was my role as a one-parent household. I kind of had to step up and, be the voice for my mom and take responsibilities and make things happen. And so that allowed me to kind of grow into who I am, which is a take charge kind of person and looking at solutions-based movement versus blame and how to move forward and progress in our life and learn from one another.
So was your mother an immigrant, or did she have an English language proficiency issue?
I'm first generation on my dad's side, and his English was not exactly that great in the ways of, someone who was born here. He was an English second language. So I was a go-between in that case, in some cases,
right,
between my dad and even other, people in the family, because his way of conversing was very direct and he didn't pull any punches. You know what I mean? Like he said what he meant and he didn't say much. And so people sometimes were a little taken aback by that sort of maybe abruptness.
What culture was he from?
We are Armenian.
Armenian?
Yes. And we're very strong and resilient people. And
no kidding. Armenians are super strong.
Yeah.
I think they maybe win the prize for resilience, really.
Yeah. And on my mother's side, my grandfather was in the exile. So my mother was a miracle to be born here. She was first generation here. So I'm second generation on my mom's side and first generation on my dad's side. But the story is so unique because I may not have been here at all had it not been for the perseverance of my great-great-grandmother and great-grandmother. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think it was instilled in me to be a very sort of take charge kind of person to survive, basically.
Right. And sometimes people say, that it reverses the family roles when the children have to take charge for things that normally their parents would do. But I think that in your case and in other people that I've spoken to have really made something of themselves. It just gave them the sense that they could do the things that were required and that they would have the resources if they needed them.
Yes. And you become resilient.
Yes.
And my mother calls me tenacious. These words are words that they can be viewed, somewhat differently depending upon who's speaking them. And so that was my culture, was that we were very straightforward people.
Mm-hmm. So you were straightforward, and then you also had that coming new to a country, and then being new in the country. Maybe I don't know if that was for you, but your situation is similar to mine. My father was an immigrant. My mother was the first generation born to immigrant parents. And so the sense of being a pioneer from my mother's side was very strong. Mm-hmm. And from my dad's side, it's the idea of coming to the new world was also very strong. and starting a new life and taking advantage of the opportunities, and don't take for granted that you've got an opportunity kind of thing. That
Yes,
it did that. Was that something you experienced as well?
exactly right. Everything that, I was my first college graduate in my family, and I did that through student loans and grants and even things from our Armenian friends, AGBU, and the Benevolent Association, who had a vested interest in seeing Armenians succeed. There were very high-level Armenians in the Estee Lauder company. Janet Sarkeesian, was a role model for me. And so it was very important. Once I achieved that role in a corporate environment, that I, used my talents appropriately. And being straightforward and upfront can sometimes, you have to sort of temper how you speak in a corporate environment versus how you speak in your home.
That's true.
And so, that was also a very, communication skills. I would teach that to our sales force. And so communication to me is everything, and asking specific questions and asking the hard questions when needed, I think is a process that I've tried to sort of integrate into everywhere that I've been, looking at things differently.
So from the groups you were born into, what would you say has most influenced your sense of culture and self and your leadership, right? I mean, Armenian culture must have affected you somehow.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I'm sure there were others. So tell me a little bit about that.
I had the unique, I think, blessing of growing up in an environment where we were multicultural in every aspect of my life. Where we lived in New York, in Queens, it was a middle-class community, and there were all different religious groups and all different people who lived together, where I was blessed to learn cultures that I, would not have necessarily been exposed to. So I had friends of all different cultures and learned different family, gatherings through different, with friends and such, what they eat and how they speak. And so in my community, I was very fortunate to have a very well global view of my childhood. And I was born into a group of people who had endured. So going back then to that same question, it was always about endurance, but always about open-mindedness for other cultures.
Right. You had two experiences. You had the experience of being rooted in Armenian culture, and then you also had the experience of being exposed to and becoming friends with people from other races and cultures and religions. So you got both the breadth and the depth at the same time.
Yes. And early in life, like quite early in kindergarten. I often go back to that in times and see how that was such a blessing, because there are many people who don't get to interact at all. And so when you learn, and that gives you the opportunity to learn about other cultures, you're much more open-minded to things. And, the norm is not, and I'm making quotation marks, the norm is just not what you live. The norm is completely different depending upon who you are.
You lose your fear of difference.
Right.
You become curious rather than fearful.
Right.
So you've spoken a lot about that multicultural aspect, but I would like to hear a little bit more about the Armenian aspect. What are some things from Armenian culture that you think have affected you other than resilience and endurance? There must be some other things too.
There are so many things about the Armenian culture that makes you look back. We're known to be the first Christians. And if, not being a super religious person myself, I still am tolerant to all and believe that that is a huge driver in the Armenian culture. And religionism versus spirituality, these are things that are things you question as you go through life. So the Christianity and the religious aspect of the Armenian culture is very strong. Another amazing part of what Armenians do is all about food. So it's given me my actual love and wanting people to have healthy, great quality of life, because food is thy medicine. And there are several, Armenian recipes and things that go back, and not just Armenian, but so many in that region that are all about, there are blue zones in this world where people live well into, centenarians and are doing things that are back to basics. Armenians have been back to basics and always using fresh ingredients and organic. It always grew in those countries. And so food has been our binder. Whenever anything is going wrong in Armenian, whether it's happy or sad, it's always about let's have a party or get together and put some food there and let's come together. So, it creates that community, that family. And I will say that something about meeting an Armenian, no matter where you are in this world, if you meet one, you are automatically connected and you share something that is a love and a joy that no one else might understand. And I know that for a fact because everywhere I traveled in the world, I've traveled to 34 countries in the world for work and for personal. I met an Armenian, in Singapore, and immediately we were fast friends. So, in the hotels where I would go, where they would work, people would be working, they'd find out that you were an Armenian and they were Armenian. I mean, immediately you were talking like you knew each other. So there's a love there. There's a lot of love in that. Food is love for Armenians.
Food and hospitality are critical to feeling that you belong.
Yes.
And when you have shared foods that everybody loves, and when people prepare those foods together, and when they offer hospitality to each other, it has such a strong bond. It's really something we're missing a lot in the world. And I think that right now we're missing it even more because of this global pandemic where people cannot even be in a public place close to others. And we've become hungry for human contact and for community and for being the freedom and joy of being able to just invite a bunch of people over and go to their home and just share some food together and just laugh and enjoy each other's company. It feels like such a hole in our lives right now.
It does, because in my world, that creates health. Your tonic chemicals in your body are produced when love and serotonin and, the whole family aspect. So I'm hoping for our continued progression through so that we'll be able to have those things again, and understanding that what we put into our body is extremely important for how we navigate our world, whether it be this virus or another, or the flu or any other adverse situation. When your mind and your body are aligned, that's how we grow. And we need to go to a higher level of human consciousness in order to navigate it and be prosperous and maybe unlock whatever it is we're doing here.
Yeah, and I think that going to that higher level of human consciousness is still done through the ways we've always connected that you spoke about right now. There have been studies that have been done on babies and touch, and babies are healthier when they're touched more. Babies are healthy if they feel that they've got somebody holding them all the time. And if the food that they receive is given with love, then they develop a healthy body image. Like all of these things are so necessary, the food and the contact, the community, the physical touch. They're all connected to health intimately. So from the groups you chose to belong to, because you grew up and you chose to belong to the beauty industry, to the health industry. And also there may have been other ethnic cultures that you became close to, or maybe you adopted a different spirituality or religion, or you have a hobby, something you would have chosen to belong to those groups. What are some of those groups that have affected who you are now?
So there have been so many groups of people that have affected me in my life, and I learn from every single one that I meet. Probably where I find so much passion and joy is in one of the hobbies that is not necessarily part of, my Armenian upbringing per se. I'm a roller skater.
No way.
I am. So it's gotten a huge craze right now that's happening where people are, saying like, oh, roller skating is on the rise, but it's always been. And it lives in the heart of urban communities where, for $10, you can go for 4 and 5 hours, get an amazing workout, have great community with friends, and enjoy your life. Roller skating is a passion, I think. And so many people, the rinks have closed and, we've taken it outside, and it's always endured whatever we've gone through, because it is one of the best things I think that has made me see just how happy people can be with the smallest of things happening. And
so you're talking about the roller skates that are actually like little wheels, or you're talking about like the blade roller skates?
I never was a roller blader. It just wasn't my shtick, but they're the 8 wheels, the 4 and 4 next to each other, old school as we call them, or whatever words we want to use. But I've been skating since I'm a child, and it's freedom. It's like dancing and flying on the wood, because the groups that I'm part of, we are dance skaters. Like I'm part of the Central Park Dance Skaters Association.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah. And in Venice, there's a California skate circle. And then I've skated all over the world, actually. I've skated in England as well. And so there's a huge community and we all know each other and we talk about it. It's our release. It's our freedom and it's our way of really just coming together in different communities and enjoying one another.
So anywhere you go in the world, you can find some kind of a roller skate community, right?
Correct. And I've always been that person who's walked into a rink by myself in a strange town. And within 3 or 4 minutes, I'm talking to someone and we're discussing how the rink is and what's fun and what songs. And then you're just meeting, just have a common bond and a common interest. It's quite fun.
It sounds fun. Great. It sounds really good. I mean, I'm in the cold place here, so we typically have a lot more ice skating than roller skating. But there is that feeling of freedom of flying through the air and the speed and the connecting with other people. I can imagine what it would be like with roller skating because I know what it's like for ice skating.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was really interesting. So a little bit about your temperament. You mentioned already, and I think in a way it's hard to separate temperament from how you've been raised because Armenians are resilient and have been for such a long time and have been through so much as a culture. So you could say resilience could be part of your temperament that you were born with, but in a way that's also everybody else, right? But is there something that you would say was your temperament and people went, oh, right, that's so Denise. She's been like that since she was 3 or something like that. What would you say is your temperament?
So I'm what an HR person has described me as a persister. And there are different types of things that we do in our HR world that we measure our characteristics, right? So I guess how we could kind of go back to that as being, oh, it's always been that way, is because I can recall even being a very small child and having bouts of, maybe if I didn't get what I wanted, maybe I was extremely upset about it. And I kept either stating my case or trying to, maybe be upset about it, maybe cry a bit more than I should have. I guess if it's something that I believe in.
You wore them down. They went, okay, just stop. We'll do it. Just stop.
Exactly right. My one boss, oh my God, I don't want to out her, but she called me a dog with a bone once. I was like, is that a compliment or is that not a compliment? So I didn't know. I was like, okay.
It's probably both. Everything that we are naturally doing can be both access to greatness and our downfall at the same time.
Yes, like a backhanded compliment, basically. So yes, I'm a persister. And when I fight for what I believe in, that's the word. It's like the fight. And so now in my life, I'm actually changing that temperament to be more about understanding the universe and saying, is this really a fight that I need to focus on? Because there are so many things going on. And so I no longer want to use the word fight. I want to use the word advocate for and know when to pick my battles. And that's a huge growth phase that I've been in these past few years. And while sitting here in pandemic lockdown, second phase, it's just more and more contemplative as we're sitting here. So that's who I am. I'm a persister, but I'm contemplative and wanting to go forward in a way that the message is going to land. So not to feel as if people have to feel worn down by coming along with me. It's more about that it's a productive, solutions-based existence.
Maybe it's a little bit about also knowing when to step up. What's the right moment? Or I keep coming back to the ecosystem, or maybe the idea of the human body, where there's different levels of ascendancy for each of the organs in the human body, right? So, in the morning, elimination is the ascendant one. So organs have different periods of optimal performance. And so if that organ chose not to kick in at that time, it would really affect the rest of the system. And in an ecosystem, at some point, you've got something growing more than another and messages going through the roots of trees telling others, this part of the ecosystem is dying. Let's put our energy into seeds. Like things like that are happening. And I'm thinking as we get older that rather than trying to force our way in, we're more like conscious of that, reading the reality around us and then finding the right moment to step in.
Yes.
The optimal moment.
Being self-aware. I think that comes with a certain amount of meditative, investigatory work.
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes you may not be aware, and maybe I wasn't aware of my message landing, let's say, in a way that maybe, it could have been adopted quicker if I did something different.
Mm-hmm.
So self-awareness, I think, is something that's been a huge focus for me as well. And you perfect who you are. I like a lot how you ask those questions about temperament and then what happens, because it's true. You are a person inside, like you have a drive, you're a soul, and you exhibit qualities that are unique. Every single person does it. It's the conforming and the maybe societal rejection and the norm that makes us sort of temper ourselves.
But it's also how you respond to the challenges and the opportunities that come up in your life.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So let me ask you about a time you became aware that your cultural understandings were specific to your culture and not just normal. And that could be also for people who are used to being in a very multicultural context, experiencing a very homogenous context, that can also be an experience of culture shock. So I don't know, a time when you felt that what you thought everybody else believed wasn't the same, as it's just specific to you and your experience.
Yes, to go back specifically to communication, that one is the highlight, because in my upbringing and my surroundings, everybody was very forthcoming and very able to voice what they were feeling. And then going into different cultures, I mean, for instance, I traveled a lot in Europe and in areas where it's very proper and you're not so forthcoming, even though we know what's being communicated. I don't know if I've said that in a way that is able to be easily understood. There's different ways of communicating to my norm that are so not norm in other places.
Right. Well, you got a double whammy because you've got Armenian directness and American directness.
Yes, exactly.
And you're in New York. Anybody more direct than a New Yorker? So
not one. I'm telling you.
It's a triple whammy.
Yes.
Yeah.
So for me, what's no brainer and doesn't hurt my feelings in any way, because I'm evolved. Like the way constructive feedback is given throughout the years as a trainer, to me even, has made me realize that feedback is just feedback. It's neither good nor bad. It just is. And it's usually on a rated system of some kind. So you're always measured what's good, what's bad. These are these words. But for me, I would rather be told straight than kind of a roundabout way what it is exactly the people mean.
I also grew up in a very direct family. And then I ended up being in situations where I was regularly in contact with Persians. Persians are very indirect. And if you say, gee, I'm wondering if I should clean this today or maybe next weekend, that will be interpreted as, hey, so-and-so, you better get over here and clean this right now. So if I say to somebody, that is a beautiful necklace that you're wearing, that's interpreted as, give it to me now. So you realize that after a few incidents where you totally messed up, and then one where I was trying to create an event, and I asked several of my Persian friends, would you be willing to do this or that for the event? And the way they responded to me, I thought meant yes, but it didn't. It didn't mean yes. They'd said, well, I'm a pretty busy person right now, but I think I could probably manage it. That actually was no, but I wasn't picking up on it. And it just caused me so much heartache. It was such a shock to me until I realized I was going to have to pay closer attention to the subtleties. And I was going to have to ask 3 or 4 times to make sure I got the right answer. So if I say, so that means then that you're too busy to come, right? And if they'd say, right, I'm not going to be able to make it this time, that would be the second time. That's pretty direct for a Persian. Usually you have to ask 3 or 4 times in different ways until you're sure if the answer is a yes or a no, because you really don't know otherwise.
Correct.
So have you ever had any experiences like that?
Yes, most definitely. I mean, I use active listening in those cases. So for instance, if I ask for help with something on prepping for my company, and I did this with a few people, and I was told I don't have the bandwidth to support that. But deep down inside, it was because of the subject matter and not the lack of time. So in my business as a health coach, part of what I do is to awaken people to the ideas of other information, not necessarily mainstream. And when I mean mainstream, what's on your TV or what you're seeing, on your everyday life. there are other things that exist out there that you don't necessarily have to go along with what's being told you on the mainstream. If you want to make a choice to have health, and it's very different from what anybody else says, but it gives you what you're needing and you have a very productive and happy life, then they should be able to have that choice. So what my role is in this company is to sort of wake people up. And when I ask people to get involved on the subject of, let's say, maybe vaccination, which is a very polarizing subject, there is a lot of evidence out there that, certain things may not be necessary. And maybe the ways that we have been progressing as humans and germ theory and all of the things we think we are controlling, we maybe really aren't. But at the end of the day,
right.
When you have a company and you, let's say, need people to, let's say, write your stories about it or, check your facts or whatever it is. And if someone doesn't want to support your mission, I wasn't told straight that way. I was told I don't have the bandwidth. And then when I kept pressing, then it became, because of course I'm a persister, right? I pretty much held our 30-year friendship to the test, I guess.
So the person is not saying, I'm not comfortable doing that, or they're not saying, that's not something I'm able to do right now. We don't see eye to eye on that. Instead of saying that, they're saying, I don't have the bandwidth, and they're just sort of being evasive, right? Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay.
And then once pressed, also still being evasive, but then ultimately I got the answer because I asked it in a few different ways, kind of the way you described. And in the end of the day, I know that exact person is the exact person who needs my coaching.
But what people need and
right.
what they're willing to be accept are two different things.
You can't help people who don't want the help.
No.
A concept that I've grasped as a persister has been very difficult for me.
Yeah, there's that joke that says, how many psychologists does it take to turn a light bulb? Only one, but the light bulb has to want to change.
Yeah. That's a great one. It really is.
Yeah. So we're getting close to the end of the interview, and I wanted to ask you, if somebody hires you for one of your services, what's the best way to work with you? What would you tell them, other than being straightforward, which you've mentioned a few times? What other things would bring out the best in Denise?
I really want what the client wants. And when I see a happy client, it makes me extremely happy because it means that I've contributed in a positive way to another human on this planet. And so whomever wants to work with me needs to know that I'm that person that holds you to the carpet about things. And nowadays we have our best friends in this world are the ones who call us on our BS. And so I'm that person pretty much. And I basically, through kindness and love, point out to people that maybe are thoughts that have guided them their whole entire life. And it's when they realize that it's no longer serving them. And being true, being honest to oneself is the greatest way to spiritual enlightenment, if you ask me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when you're going to actually say, is this true? And then think about it and go, no, I don't think it is.
Exactly.
Or how would I live my life if this were not true? What would be different?
How could we make better change for one another? So when you work together, it's about how to bring out the best in the client, but in the end of the day, they also bring out the best in me.
That's true. Yeah.
We grow, we learn, we connect with another human. And in my roles in life, it's my greatest thought that every person you meet, no matter whether you read about them or even touch them or see them on a Zoom call, they're influencing or impacting your life in some way. And nothing is random. So we all have things to learn from one another, and how we decide to make a difference in this world is how well we take the learnings, in my opinion.
Yes, totally.
Yeah, IMO, that's our new hashtag nowadays, in my opinion. We're all experts now, so.
Yeah, maybe we need less opinions and more thoughtful looking for the truth.
Right. Ask the questions. Is this true? Can you prove this 4 ways from Sunday?
Yeah. Yeah. So here's your spot to promote. What would you like to promote? What would you like Culture and Leadership Connections listeners to pay attention to that you do?
I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to be with you, because through leadership, it allows me to understand that anyone who needs me is going to need me in the capacity of all these different talents and thoughts that I have throughout my career. So on my website, which is called www.getup, getoutgetwell.com. There are 3 different aspects of my life that I help clients with. I work, of course, with the skin. I have a multicultural beauty website called Beauty Tap that you can visit and ask questions and investigate products. I have my nutrition coaching programs, which are one-on-one and or virtual, and hopefully will integrate facials again. And also I serve as a business coach for businesses that are up and coming in the areas of health, wellness, and nutrition, as well as education, training, and improving people's lives. So on that website, you can find all of that information there. And my email, deniseshamlian@gmail.com. for anyone who wants to contact me directly.
Awesome. So there are 2 websites, getoutgetwell.com.
Yes. On that site has a link to 3 different microsites.
Right.
Once you go to getoutgetoutgetwell.com, you'll go to beautytap.com, and then you'll go to Advisory Cloud, and then you'll go to my email. So you have 3 different directional sites for whatever it is, because I'm kind of a unicorn, and on my 4th or 5th career, right, as we speak, you have a lot of tools in your toolbox, and you sometimes can create things in an area where you aren't necessarily ever in, as long as you're a corporately trained person. So the ideas and the knowledge and the tools that you have in a toolbox apply in so many different areas, and we should constantly be honing and sharpening our skills to take our life knowledge to be able to go solutions-based forward in everything we do. Mm-hmm. Ask questions, be truthful, and just be out there. Be out there investigating and doing things that make you feel well.
Mm-hmm. So good. Anything else you'd like to say before we close today?
Thank you so much for taking the time with me, Marie. I really appreciate it.
And thank you. It's been really a pleasure, Denise. Denise Shamlian got her resilience from her Armenian roots, persistence from her temperament, and directness from Armenian-American and New Yorker cultures combined. Working for years at a corporate level with important beauty brand names such as Liz Claiborne and Estee Lauder, Denise had the benefit of mastering sales and marketing while being mentored by high-level successful women. Taking her career to the next level, Denise chose a more intense focus on nutrition and health as a foundation to beauty. Her business uses facials as a springboard into nutrition for living a healthier and happier life. I enjoyed interviewing Denise and was especially delighted to find out about the roller skating community to which she has belonged since childhood, and that allows her to connect to like-minded people around the world, no matter what place she travels to. If you liked this interview, I would love to hear from you. Take a minute to send me an email or a voice message on LinkedIn telling me what insight or comment stood out most for you personally. Thank you for listening, and may culture and leadership connections continue to guide and inspire your day. This podcast would not be possible without the expertise of our Culture and Leadership Connections production team. A big thank you and shout out to Mike Kurlander for audio production and editing, to Malvika Kathpal for the show notes, Bernadette Guadiz for online web and social media management and promotions, Celine Bayogo for design, and Kirsten Hoyer for website and branding. Thank you so much. Hey, Culture and Leadership Connections podcast listeners. Do you love these insightful and moving interviews published twice monthly for your listening pleasure? You may not know that it costs between $300 and $500 per month to pay for our podcast episodes. Shocking, but true. Well, now you can help support this podcast by showing your love with a little skin in the game real money on the Patreon website. For as little as $5 or as much as $50 a month, you can contribute to keep Culture and Leadership Connections alive and healthy. Your donation is invaluable in helping us connect the hearts and minds of people across cultures and professions for happier and more humane workplaces. I know you will call on your inner generosity, knowing that your contribution is a practical demonstration of love and support. Check out the patreon.com/culture and leadership connections page to see what subscription level feels right for you, and find out about the special loyalty perks at each patron level. That's spelled Patreon, patreon.com/culture and leadership connections. Thank you for your generosity.